Single sentence in an official statement released by Prince Harry's spokesperson became a major point of discussion among royal commentators following his July 2026 visit to the United Kingdom. Some analysts argued that the wording of the statement raised questions about the sequence of events surrounding accommodation arrangements and security planning, while others viewed it as part of an ongoing disagreement between the Sussexes and the palace. The statement referred to accommodation being formally accepted over the weekend, a phrase that quickly became the focus of media analysis. Different commentators interpreted that timeline in different ways. Some suggested it supported the palace's version of events regarding scheduling, while others argued it reflected the complexities of organizing a high-profile visit under challenging circumstances. No official ruling has determined which interpretation is correct. At the same time, several media outlets examined the visit from a broader perspective, suggesting it carried both personal and public relations significance. Reports from Radar Online, citing unnamed sources, claimed the trip could have benefited Meghan Markle's commercial profile by reinforcing her association with the royal family. Because those claims rely on anonymous sourcing, they remain unverified and should be treated as opinion rather than established fact. The visit also took place against the backdrop of Prince Harry's long-running legal dispute over security arrangements in the United Kingdom. Court records show that he challenged decisions regarding publicly funded protection, while the relevant authorities defended their assessment process. Those legal proceedings are separate from any commercial considerations and were decided through the courts. Following the visit, commentators continued to debate whether communication from both the Sussex team and the palace could have been handled differently. Some believed the public statements created unnecessary confusion, while others argued that the conflicting accounts reflected the wider tensions that have characterized relations between the two sides in recent years. Ultimately, the discussion surrounding the July visit centers on timing, official statements, and differing public narratives rather than on confirmed conclusions. As with many high-profile royal stories, interpretations vary, and the available evidence consists primarily of public statements, court records, and reporting from established media organizations. The controversy didn't end with the accommodation dispute. Instead, Harry's own official statement created an even bigger problem. On July 6, 2026, his spokesperson released a carefully prepared response to the media. Buried within that statement was a single sentence that completely changed the narrative. It wasn't important because of what it claimed. It was important because of what it unintentionally confirmed. By the end of this section, one point becomes clear. That same sentence supports Buckingham Palace's timeline, reinforces that the security dispute remained the central issue, and raises new questions about the commercial value Meghan Markle hoped to gain from the UK visit. Rather than strengthening the Sussex position, the statement appeared to undermine it. To understand why this wording matters, it's necessary to look beyond the family disagreement. Reports before the visit suggested Meghan viewed the trip as an opportunity to strengthen her public brand. According to media sources, her lifestyle business depended heavily on maintaining an image closely associated with the royal family. A successful appearance in Britain, complete with positive media coverage and visible royal connections, could have provided valuable publicity at a time when several commercial projects were facing increased scrutiny. From that perspective, the visit represented more than a personal journey. It also carried significant branding value. Images alongside senior royals, appearances at official locations, and renewed public association with the institution all had potential commercial importance. The obstacle, however, was security. By the time the trip approached, Prince Harry had already suffered multiple legal defeats regarding his request for publicly funded protection in the UK. His challenge to the security arrangements had been rejected several times, and reports indicated that a further review process had still not been completed before the visit began. As a result, the security issue remained unresolved long before the accommodation dispute entered the headlines. Critics argued that this made the entire situation predictable. If the legal position on security had already been settled by the courts, then the chances of achieving a different outcome during this visit were always extremely limited. The timeline becomes even more significant when Harry's own statement is examined. The statement accused Buckingham Palace of withdrawing an accommodation offer at the last moment, However, earlier in the same document, the spokesperson explained that Harry spent the previous week arranging alternative security and was only able to formally accept the accommodation offer over the weekend after those arrangements had been completed. Royal sources, meanwhile, maintained that the response had been expected before the end of the previous week and that the offer expired after the deadline passed. Whether one accepts the palace's explanation or not, the wording of Harry's own statement appears to confirm that his formal acceptance came after the reported deadline. That sequence is what many commentators focused on. Instead of disproving the palace's version of events, the statement appeared to place Harry's acceptance after the time frame that royal officials had previously described. Attention then shifted back to the larger issue. Harry's spokesperson had already stated days earlier that accommodation itself was never the real dispute. According to the official position, the central concern was always security. The accommodation question simply became another consequence of that unresolved disagreement. When viewed together, the court decisions, the security dispute, and the spokesperson's own wording create a consistent timeline. Meghan remained in California. Security arrangements were still unresolved. The accommodation deadline appears to have passed before formal acceptance, and the planned UK visit failed to deliver the level of royal association that some reports suggested was commercially valuable. Just as the accommodation controversy dominated headlines, another major legal development arrived. On July 7, 2026, the High Court delivered its judgment in Prince Harry's long-running privacy case against Associated Newspapers. After a lengthy trial involving dozens of allegations, the court concluded that the claimants had not produced sufficient evidence to prove that unlawful information gathering had occurred. The ruling focused on the legal standard of proof rather than personal belief or suspicion. Following the judgment, Prince Harry publicly criticized the decision, describing it in unusually strong language. Supporters argued that he was expressing frustration after years of litigation, while critics warned that such comments directed toward the judicial process could attract additional scrutiny as the proceedings moved into the costs phase. With the verdict delivered, attention quickly shifted away from the trial itself and toward the financial consequences that would soon be determined by the court. The court's ruling ultimately came down to one central point: evidence. Suspicion alone is not enough in a courtroom. The burden rests on the claimant to provide proof, and the judge concluded that legal standard had not been met. Prince Harry responded with a sharply worded public statement, describing the outcome as a complete and obvious whitewash. That choice of language immediately became part of the story. Legally, there is an important distinction between saying evidence was insufficient and suggesting the judicial process itself was flawed. The judgment addressed the available evidence, while Harry's response reflected his personal view of the outcome. Legal commentators noted that these are fundamentally different positions. One concerns whether a case was proven in court, the other questions confidence in the result itself. The debate quickly expanded beyond the courtroom. Some royal observers argued that King Charles, because of his constitutional role, must remain above political or legal disputes involving the press. From that perspective, they suggested Harry's continued litigation creates challenges for the monarchy's public image, although those opinions remain matters of commentary rather than legal fact. Associated Newspapers also issued a statement following the judgment, thanking the court for its handling of the lengthy proceedings while criticizing the litigation and pointing to the substantial legal costs generated during the case. The company indicated it intended to pursue recovery of those costs through the normal legal process. Attention then shifted toward the next major stage of the proceedings, the costs hearing. Legal specialists explained that this phase could prove just as significant as the original trial, because it would determine how much of the litigation expenses each side may ultimately be responsible for. Beyond the legal consequences, analysts also examined the broader public relations impact. Before the UK visit, several reports suggested Meghan's commercial projects could benefit from renewed visibility and positive royal associations. Instead, headlines became dominated by the accommodation dispute, the security controversy, and the court judgment. Rather than producing the carefully managed publicity many expected, media coverage focused largely on legal developments and disagreements surrounding the visit. Meghan remained in California throughout the period, while Harry attended public engagements on his own. Commentators argued that the trip therefore failed to generate the positive royal imagery that some believed would support the Sussex brand. Whether that ultimately affects future commercial opportunities remains to be seen, but it became one of the major talking points following the visit. The discussion now moves to the financial implications. With reported legal costs reaching tens of millions of pounds, the upcoming costs proceedings will determine how those expenses are allocated. Legal experts have pointed out that the court has several options when assessing recoverable costs, making the next hearing a significant milestone in the overall litigation. As the timeline stands, several key events have already unfolded. The security litigation concluded, the accommodation dispute dominated headlines, the privacy case ended with judgment, and attention has now shifted toward the financial consequences that remain before the court. The next phase is expected to focus not on the original allegations, but on the legal costs generated by one of the most closely watched media cases in recent years. The security demand, the stated reason the family didn't travel, was rooted in 3 lost court cases. The commercial strategy was structurally impossible before it started. Every commercial partner as ever has or seeks is built on the premise that Meghan Markle is a former working royal with active connections to the British monarchy. This week produced documented public evidence of the opposite. That's not reputation damage, that's material information about the commercial premise every partner relies on. Here's the calculation. One sentence. Harry's spokesman filed a statement on July 6, 2026, accusing Buckingham Palace of withdrawing a formally accepted accommodation offer. And the same statement documents in its own language that the acceptance came after the Friday deadline. While Meghan remained in California, having spent months building a commercial strategy around a UK visit that depended on a security outcome 3 courts had already ruled against. The document that proves the palace was right was written by the person accusing the palace of being wrong. The commercial strategy that needed this visit to succeed was built on a legal outcome the courts denied 3 times. And the brand that needed royal magic to survive is now facing potential indemnity costs recovery on a $50 million legal bill, on top of the Netflix exit, on top of the ratings collapse, on top of $45 million in annual lifestyle costs. None of that is speculation. All of it is sourced, dated, and on the public record as of July 8, 2026. So here's my question. Specific answer only, not a theory. Harry's spokesman's statement says the security demand was the reason the family couldn't travel. The court record shows the security outcome was decided against Harry 3 times before this visit started. If the security arrangement was never going to change, and the courts confirm it wasn't, at what point did the commercial strategy built around that outcome become impossible? And who in that operation knew it? Tell me what you found in the public record.